If there's one thing this hobby's taught us, it's that Winchester never stopped trying to make a good semi-automatic shotgun. First, their battle with Browning and the infamous A5, which eventually morphed into this huge battle with Remington, and the battle against the Remington Model 1100. But no matter what Winchester tried, their designs were always interesting and always cool to pick apart and check out. And this one is no different. Let's get in here and take a look. Serp Garage. Winchester Super X Model 1. The year was 1974. Now, we might not be able to show patents on this channel anymore, but we are going to show shotguns. We're going to take you right back to the beginning of the Winchester autoloader. We've been down this road before. Anybody familiar with this channel knows every time we get a new example, we go back to the beginning and we come down the road again. We're going to be skipping one this time, though. There's one that I just literally refuse to get, but we're going to take a look at the lineage. We're going to take a look at some cool promotional videos. We're going to take a look at some shooting videos. We're going to take a look at some shotguns. We're going to see what Winchester was doing through those years of trying so desperately to keep up with everybody else's semi-automatic shotguns. Something about, man, there was some bad karma when whoever was in charge of Winchester, and again, I don't have all this stuff laid out in front of me, so I'm going to be doing a little of the, that guy, that gun, that kind of thing, without having the exact information for all of this stuff, but we've been there before. You know what I'm talking about. So the head of Winchester, back in the, turn of the century, good old John Browning was working with Winchester and bringing him all these gun designs. Winchester was buying everything up. Bring him a design, they'd just buy the design. They would just pay for it. One price, boom, all right, we'll buy that. A lot of the stuff they just shelved, And remind me, I'm going to tell you something cool that I'm going to bring to you. Speaking of shelving. This was the Browning A5. This was Browning's crowning achievement. He loved this thing. He worked on it so hard. It had a long recoil operation with the barrel retracting into the gun like this, whatever. It's crazy. What he had to do in here, it's too tight. Friction ring system in here. Check it out. This is our 16 gauge Belgian FN version. I got a video on this, a bunch of videos back. Take a look. Winchester said, okay, we'll buy it. Browning said, well, we're going to do something a little different this time. I want royalties on it. That was similar probably to the deals he had with maybe Colt or FN. And he said, I want to have, I want to get paid for each one of these you sell. Because I think this is really going somewhere. This is different. He knew how cool this was, you know what I mean? And maybe Winchester didn't. He was like, listen, I'm not changing up. That's not the way we do business. I just buy the design. If you don't want to sell the design to me, then, forget it. That was a big mistake. There was a lot of bravado going around over there, I'm sure. But Winchester probably should have listened. And he was this Bennett. he bailed on it. He said, forget it. Browning scooped it up, tried to take it to Remington. Some kind of issues with the guy in charge of Remington dying on that day. So took it across the seas to Fabrique Nationale to make this thing. Winchester, they just decided to move on. They were like, yeah, whatever. Now, interestingly, so Browning, he used to work close with Winchester, with T.C. Johnson, one of their top designers over there. And T.C. Johnson and the whole patent crew over there, every time Browning would bring a new design to them, it was commonplace. Winchester was buying up tons of Browning designs. A lot of them, like I said, never even producing them, just to buy them up so they didn't go to anybody else that could, compete with Winchester. They just bought up all the Browning designs just to keep them all to themselves, Well, they worked on the patents like they always did, and locked the patents down so tight that when he wound up not going with Winchester, Winchester wanted to make a semi-automatic shotgun of their own. They couldn't touch any of these ideas, any of these patents in here. And not only that, T.C. Johnson, while he was a disciple of John Browning, he was no John Browning. It took a really long time. It took till 1911 until Winchester came out with this, the Winchester 1911. And if you notice, it's kind of weird because it is a semi-auto, but it has no bolt handle. That was part of the patent. There's a lot of things that were part of the patent. Check out my video on this guy. You'll love it. I'll probably, I guess I'll throw links to all of these down there. I guess I should, right? So, but I always hate to do that because I don't want you jumping around now. Like, just stay focused. The video's over. You can always go and explore. I'll put these links down there for you. But this gun, this is that cool one. Everybody's heard of this. It has this knurling here. So you actually grab it by the barrel because it also is the long recoil. It's so hard to do this flat on a table. There's also the long recoil design. See? They tried, T.C. Johnson tried to come up with his own idea here. There's all these like buffers in here and all kinds of things. There aren't really like friction rings to slow anything down. It was more like a buffer system. I don't know. Browning must have tried that and not been able to put together because Bennett wasn't either. And this was a dismal failure. This shotgun. It's I'm not even going in there. I'm not even going in there to show you what's going on in there. It's scary. But they made those until 1925. And then there was a big gap till 1939. 1939, they tried again. This guy was only available for like a couple of years. Huge recalls on this thing. This is one of the long forgotten shotguns of Winchester. But this is where that whole, first of all, they called the 1911 the Widowmaker. It was like blowing people's heads off. I don't know what was going on there. And then this thing was supposedly exploding and taking people's heads off. Who knows if any of these rumors are true, but they're certainly not good rumors. They weren't positive rumors. And in here, oh, this one's turnable. We can get in here. And in here, interestingly enough, these patents, I think they expired in 1937. So here we are in 1939, and we're in here with our own A5 looking friction ring system here. Interesting, right? Certainly looks like the A5's friction ring system, doesn't it? Well, it isn't. It's close. It's an attempt to copy it, is what it is. Model 40. Listen, I love shooting this thing. I haven't been killed by it. It has a lot of novel things, like you see the safety right here, like it has like a screw head in it. You can turn that, like right now it's locked out. See, like if you go to press it, I like that because you could lock it out so that if you ever accidentally bump it or accidentally press it, you don't accidentally put the safety on. You could like lock the safety out. I kind of like that. You'd probably never be able to do that these days, but back then it was pretty cool. And like I said, they only made that guy for a couple of years. They were failing dismally, and then again they didn't try again till the Model 50 in 1954. Could you imagine? They made this guy from 54 to 62. And then there was like a Model 59 that had like a fiberglass barrel. A lot of people say to me, they go like, oh yeah, this Model 50, I know that one, it has a fiberglass barrel. Oh, so many people say that. It wasn't the 50 that had that. It was the 59. And that's novel. I don't think those barrels were blowing up. I don't think there were any problems with them. It was metal covered by fiberglass, but it made them very light. And the 1911 and the Model 40 were both long recoil designs. This is a short recoil design. This was actually a really cool shotgun. Now this one was designed by Carbine Williams, David Marshall Williams, the famed Carbine Williams dude. And he's the guy that had this like floating chamber thing. I'm pretty sure, didn't he design that Remington 22 that had the floating chamber also? You know what I'm talking about? He was, that was his thing. This floating chamber idea. And I'll show you what was going on there. This was a very novel shotgun. This one was cool. So what was going on here is, if you notice, the barrel, it kind of, it's not the normal type barrel you'd see on a shotgun. How it just clips in like that. Goes in with this disinterrupted thread there like that. And then in here, check that out, is this like floating chamber. It's this floating chamber idea. This was not something that Browning was screwing around with. So these other designs, these are all like T.C. Johnson. So like even the Model 12, we're going to take a look at the Model 12 in a little bit, because they tried to model the Super X Model 1 to look like the Model 12. Believe it or not, the Model 12, made by T.C. Johnson, 1912, but following a lot of Browning's designs, like very, very closely. So he was very, 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 very influenced by Browning's designs, so much so that a lot of people think that the Winchester Model 12 was even designed by John Browning. I think maybe in a way it was, you know what I mean? T.C. Johnson probably had a lot of the stuff that was on the drawing board that they were working on, you know what I mean? That they just kind of like kept, let's put it that way. But this was so far, Browning died in, I think, 26. He was long gone. And this design in 1954 is finally something totally unique and totally their own that Winchester developed with the help of Carbine Williams. What an excellent, excellent idea with this. See how there's that little bit of movement right there? That's the little bit of recoil that this goes through right there. That movement that sends the bolt back with inertia. And using this pin right here, this spring-loaded pin right here, to be able to do that. This is an interesting design to study. And if we can only take a look at the patents, huh? Yeah. Well, I encourage you to be, hopefully I influenced a lot of people to go in and look these things up on their own and check them out. Actually, here, I'll give you like a freebie here. I'll give you some homework. This is an excellent shotgun. I shoot really well with this thing. I love it. I haven't really heard of any issues with it, but I want you guys to look up patent number. You ready? US 730870. Write that down. When we get off the horn here, you take a look at that one. So what that is nearest I could make out, it was from 1903. So I think when Browning dipped out from Winchester, there was another design he was working on very closely. It was a recoil-operated shotgun with a toggle lock system, similar to like a P08 Luger. And you got to look at those patent drawings. This was never produced. Somebody should figure out how to make one of these things. The patent drawings are very, very detailed. Sure, if I showed these things here, we would be instantly thrown in YouTube jail. But you check it out. That's a freebie. See, so what that is, that was Browning patenting that when he left, when he split up with Winchester, because he knew that they were on to that design, that he probably had some working models that he already showed them, and because it took a really long time to get the Auto 5 going. Winchester was really, kicking their feet. Is that the expression? They were procrastinating because they didn't want to come out with the Auto 5 and kill all the other shotguns that they had available. The 1897 was still killer for them, and they didn't want to ruin it. So it took a really long time to get the A5 going. They stalled, and in the meantime, he's coming out with these other designs. So I think Browning patented that. It never got released, but I think he patented it just to prevent Winchester from being able to use that design as their semi-automatic shotgun. You know what I'm saying? So this was the Model 50. Now, this, by the way, this patent was owned by, the patent for this, okay. Yeah, I wrote this down, I forgot. The patent for this design was owned by Jonathan E. Browning, who is the son of John Moses Browning. The floating breech element of Carbine Williams' design was added afterwards. But how interesting is that this even, so they had to go to John E. Browning to get this design. Interesting, right? So now, where do we go from there? So, I don't see it here. It's gone. It's gone. So they released, oh, here we go, 1964. So that was 62. The Model 50 ended. I found it. So 1964. So now 1963, something changed. I have it here. You guys can check this out too. Randy Wakeman wrote an article, The Winchester Super X Model 1 Story. Check this out. You could look it up online. I guess put his name, do a Google search. I found this in a couple of different areas, this story, posted to a couple of different things. But so there was this guy, Bob Baumgart. He was a Winchester Super X Model 1 guy that used to do modifications of them. And this guy tells a story about him. So this guy, he found an original Winchester 16mm promotional film, transferred it to VHS tape, and he used to give it away with his updated guns. He used to do like a whole revamp of the Super X Model 1 and include that video in with it. We're going to take a look at that video in a little while. It's kind of interesting. So here's what happens here. So Olin, Western bought Winchester in 1935. John Olin was first vice president of Winchester Western. He subsequently became president of Olin in 1944. Chairman of the board in 54 and chairman of the executive committee. He was not overly concerned with profits at Winchester. He was more concerned with quality. He believed the better his guns were, the more ammunition he would sell. This is why Winchester guns were always so quality, right? So here's the Model 12 we were talking about, right? So this was their big This was their monster, right? John Olin began his career working for Western Cartridge in 1913. After Western bought Winchester in 35. Oh, I just said that. In 63, he was essentially put out to pasture. Being promoted to honorary chairman of the board, he no longer had control of operations. In an effort to become more profitable, Winchester downgraded their entire product line in 64, and the public never forgave them. So in 1964, things changed. 1964 was, so it's pre-63 actually. So 1964, they redesigned the Model 12 here into the 1200. And they released the Model 1400 autoloader. I was going to buy one of these things not that long ago. They made these things for a long time. They made these things even past when the Super X was out there. Like, so they didn't even, there was a 1400 Mark II that went from 68 to 94, believe it or not. So the thing was around for a long time. And I found one, I think it was like late 60s. It might have been a 68 model. I think it was a Mark II, right? So this thing, the reason why I didn't like it is it had this plastic magazine throat. And I think the one that was in there, so when I was looking at it in the gun store, I didn't buy it. I came home, I did my research, and I saw they were talking about this plastic magazine throat. So I said, well, let me take a closer look at the gun in the store, see what, because it said that they break, they crack. I took a look, and the thing was broken. It was, you could buy them, they were available, but it wasn't like some company was making tons of them, whatever. You bought like, kind of like you could find older ones that were for sale. Scary. So I skipped it, and I said, you know what, that's where I'm going to end my semi-automatic, my Winchester semi-automatic shotgun exploration. That's going to be it right there because of that one. But I didn't know that in 1974, they decided to make a jump here. You know what I mean? So what did I find? I found this guy. And so this is a first year release. This is a 1974. And there was a 1976 with it that was a Dux Unlimited. Here's the ad for it from the store, right? I printed it because I still wanted to go back and maybe think about getting it. Winchester Super X Model 1, a Dux Unlimited, Winchester Super X Dux Unlimited special commemorative model, $12.50 this guy wants for it. It's on consignment, so it's not like they could even really move. The guy would probably drop $50 off it, but that's about it. So I bailed. I'm like, I'm not going to pay that much. I paid much less for this guy. So he seems to think that the Dux Unlimited guns are very, very popular, but they're, or collectible. The Winchester ones, that they're collectible, but they're not. So what were the Dux Unlimited? You go through it right now. So Dux Unlimited Guns of the Year, they decided to come up with the commemorative Guns of the Year models. So in 1973, the first year that they started it, the Remington 1100 won. Okay. And then in 1974, it was the Remington 870 that won. So this is pretty embarrassing to Winchester, right? So 1975, they give it to the Winchester Model 12. Okay. When did they stop making? Didn't they stop making the Model 12 right around there? I think this might have been the first year they stopped making the Model 12. And then 1976, we have the Winchester Super X Model 1. Wednesday, Dux Unlimited. And they had a special serial number. They made like 500 of them or whatever. In 77, it was the Ithaca Model 37. We had just recently did a video on the Remington Model 17. So they were saying the Ithaca Model 37 and this Dux Unlimited webpage here listed as a design made from the Model 17, which was designed by John Browning and Harold Pedersen. I don't know if that's, somehow they confused his brother. I don't know who Harold is, but definitely not his name. And then whatever, those Ducks Unlimited guns kind of like went all over the place. They only did it every 3 years or every 4 years. So, but that from 73 to 77 there, that's the little clump. You got 76 right there in the middle of that with the Winchester Super X Model 1 wins. But it's funny with these designs, there's always something. So we went through all of these, right? So the model 1911, right? It was this buffer system. It didn't work. They got crushed. They fell apart. They broke apart. Didn't work. Model 40, who knows what was going on there? I haven't found out exactly what the part that fails is, thank God. But they supposedly bought them all up and replaced them. They gave everybody a Model 12 that sent one in. Winchester just tried to buy them all up and make them disappear. I'm lucky to have mine. Don't know exactly what the bad thing was. The Model 50, not really sure what their bad thing there was either. I think that one kind of skated through, but I don't know, it just had a weird history to it for some strange reason. And then the 1400 with the plastic magazine throat. So what was it inside this shotgun that was the Achilles heel? It was, of course, a buffer. Very similar to those Marlin 22s that had that buffer that would shatter into pieces like glass. Well, this one had that. And after buying it, I cycling the bolt and pulling the bolt back. It didn't sound like it was hitting metal. You know, I'd see a lot of people saying that they were getting battered and everything like that. It looked fine, felt fine. So I took it out to the trap range. I got plenty of trap footage for you too. We're gonna give that to you a little bit later. But my first round that I ever shot with it, I did really well. I don't know what I think. I might have even shot a 23 with this thing. It's excellent. We'll cover that later. But it's excellent trap gun. It really is. It works really well for me. But the buffer exploded into a million pieces on my second game. So I have my first game on video. The second game, I spent a lot of time staring into the receiver just to make sure there were pieces of the buffer coming out. I wasn't sure if I should continue the game. It was a horror story. But I did finish the game. Luckily, there was still just enough of it in there to not be really beating it up too crazy. There was like a chunk still left in there, but it exploded. So that's the bad part. So I had to go in here and replace this buffer. But before we get into that, let's actually let's watch this promotional video from Winchester here and kick back with some popcorn and let's check this thing out. All right, here we go. 20 minutes of pure Winchester awesomeness. It's 1968 here, year I was born. Ooh, did they both shoot him? It's like simultaneous.
That kind of trouble hit hunters much too often 5 years ago, just as it does today. Guns hanging up, malfunctioning, misfiring.
What kind of gun was that he's like shaking his head in front of Remington?
Winchester design engineers to do something about it.
So, what were the results of the meeting? We're going to design a new and more reliable semi-automatic shotgun. And I mean new
like they thought of this in '68.
We're going to make it of premium materials, nothing but the
do this since 1902, dude.
By the end of 1973. Pete? Tony? Yeah, I want you guys in on this. We're just talking about the specs for a new semi-automatic shotgun. It's going to have a new and more reliable firing mechanism, an improved gas system, a new loading system, and a lot of other features. And it'll be made only from premium quality steel and high-grade walnut. And of course,
now, why didn't we ever think of that before?
And moderate weight.
There are a lot of elements in those specs. Every one of them important, but they cover quite a wide range.
None of them we were ever able to do.
can get the job done by 1973. Where do we start?
The place to start is with the Model 12.
The standard had been set by the Winchester Model 12, hailed by a whole generation of hunters and shooters as the most reliable, most durable gun of its type on the market. That was how to fill the order.
Can't argue with
Produce
that.
a new gas-operated shotgun that looked like and felt like the Model 12. Just as reliable, made equally well of high-quality steel.
Good
With
luck.
all of Winchester's know-how, it still took time, 5 full years, and the investment of
No way.
millions of dollars to design, engineer, fabricate, test, and produce the gun that's already being hailed by hunters and shooters as the American-made 5-shot semi-automatic they've wanted and been waiting for. The Winchester Super X Model 1.
All right, here it is. Ooh. The Casio keyboard special. Oh,
What makes the Super X Model 1 truly new, different, more reliable than any gun in its price range? Not its looks. It's a handsome gun, sure, but it won't stop traffic. There's nothing radically different about the way it looks, except that it does remind most hunters and shooters of Winchester's Model 12 pump gun. And the 12 is number 1 in its class. What makes the Super X the leader in its class is not only its all-steel outside, but what's inside. And what those insides are made of, and how they got there. We start with high-quality steel. That's the primary material in Winchester
Nice.
Super X, except for the walnut stock and forearm. We machine the receiver from a solid block of gun-quality alloy steel.
I like that. Gun quality.
And we machine the barrel and the barrel extension from the same chrome moly steel alloy we use for the Model 12. The bolt is also made of steel. So is the gas mechanism, the trigger assembly, and the machined steel carrier that's the heart of the new loading system.
And the magazine.
We're proud
folks.
to say it again. The steel components of the Super X are machined and milled the hard way, the right way, the old Winchester way, meaning without shortcuts. For absolute
Nice.
interchangeability, every part is gauged all along the way.
The expensive way.
I'm Charlie Schultz. I'm the program director for the Super X Model 1 shotgun.
All right.
You'll be seeing some views of
Charlie,
some
don't show any
very
patents.
complex
Drawings.
manufacturing equipment used in making the gun parts. Before we do, you should understand something about the extraordinary amount of engineering that went into the preparation of these manufacturing processes. The engineering story is actually 2 stories. Number 1, how do you design a shotgun which will accommodate in the field, on the trap range, on the skeet range, every possible condition of shooter reaction, gun ammunition variables, environmental conditions, and so forth. The other part of the story is how do you build those parts so that every shotgun will perform exactly the same way every time, long-lasting, with very high reliability. The engineers who have thought out the process, the methods of making this gun have put an extraordinary amount of work into developing these machine tools. What we've done on this program is combine the existing craftsmanship of a gun factory with a new level of engineering craftsmanship. The result will be a gun which will work better, which will last much longer, and which will perform uniformly under any condition.
And now we'll show you how the Super X is made from its raw materials, starting with the all-steel receiver.
that noise?
This sophisticated machine is one of 5 units capable of performing a total of 11 separate machining operations on the internal surfaces of 4 receivers simultaneously. The machine is controlled by a programmed computer tape, which limits variations to 2 1/2 thousandths.
Nice.
And this is a 10-station rotary, capable of performing 17 separate operations, such as drilling, tapping, reaming, counterboring, countersinking, recessing, and threading.
Wow, that is pretty cool.
This precision machined receiver is the very heart of the Super X. These 3 pieces of solid steel will be transformed into bolt, bolt slide, and locking bolt. A rotary 6-station machine is used.
Whoa. What did they
Gauging
edit out there?
again establishes precision tolerances within 0.02 of an inch. And this 5-station multiple unit machines the bolt slide, performing such operations as reaming, drilling, and milling the surfaces.
This isn't like a revolutionary process for 1973, is it? I mean,
Here are the different stages in manufacturing the bolt slide. And this is how the completed bolt assembly will look. The bolt itself moves straight back and forward, never drops below the plane of the barrel, so when fired, it's always flush against the shell head. This prevents shell head distortion that can occur with a bolt that has to swing up into position. The Super X bolt is a real plus for the reloader.
too
The
bad
one-piece
it
trigger guard
batters
is
the rear
milled
of the
from a solid
receiver.
forging of the same alloy steel as the receiver. The net result of this superior modern machining is the kind of precision which permits total interchangeability of trigger guards and every other major component of the Super X Model 1.
Gotcha.
The safety is located in the forward part of the trigger guard. It's reversible for left-handed shooters, and it's in the same position as on the Model 12, up front for safety. The great new feature of the Super X's loading system is the machined steel carrier, resulting in sure loading and positive operation. In the Super X, the barrel extension and barrel are made with the same precision as the receiver. There's an extra built into the gas system. A new patented short-stroke design that doesn't employ cheap stamped action bars to transfer the gas energy. It uses a machined
stamped
steel
action
rod,
bars.
and it doesn't need compensation for high or low base loads. The finest kiln-dried American walnut is selected for
Yeah, it
forearms
doesn't
and
need
buttstocks.
compensation, but
The forearms are contoured and sanded on this
it just doesn't
4-spindle Geiger
compensate.
machine. The forearms then receive real cut checkering on a
I like these
6-spindle power
machines
machine.
that make the
The
wood.
cutting tool operates too fast for the
Oh, that's
human eye
pretty
to see
cool. Look at that. That
at
is pretty cool.
54,000 RPMs. A computer tape reproduces the patterns on each and every Super X Model 1,
Ooh,
and
use
the
a
depth of the
tape.
cut is controlled by a sensor foot.
Oh, look at that. How many it's making at a time? 6 at a time? 7? 6 at a time? Guaranteed. This gun was showing right here was made on that machine. I mean, how many of those machines do you
The
think they have?
buttstock is also checkered on this same machine.
And that was probably the guy. The guy. That could be one of the. One of those could be my gun. kind of funny when you see these historical pictures. You're always like, guaranteed that guy was the guy who did it. How many guys do you think manned that
That's
station?
the fabricating story. Lock, stock, and barrel. And Winchester's expert craftsmen put it all together, step by careful step, into the finished gun.
That's a female doing that there. Tell by the fingernails. Right? Look like it. Nice.
But before the Super X Model 1 could go into production, and it's in production now,
It's like
it had to be
mannequin
submitted to
putting that gun
rigorous
together.
testing. The engineers utilized sophisticated photoelastic techniques to investigate stress patterns.
Oh, this is getting wild. This is super
And they also
futuristic.
used ultra-high-speed photography on cutaway models to perfect the operation of the various systems and components.
Where's the slow-mo of the buffer shattering into 8 million
The
pieces?
prototype
Look,
gun
there's
passed the
pieces
test
right there
with
coming
flying
out.
colors. But that
Flying
wasn't good
colors,
enough for
alright.
men who had produced the Model 12 and wanted to make a
Those
semi-automatic that
pieces
was
of
even better.
buffer stuck to the
So
bolt.
we asked hunters at clubs all across the country to evaluate our prototype. We invited them to handle it, fire it, reload, and fire it again.
I think I shoot with some of these
We
guys.
did the same thing with trap shooters, inviting them to evaluate the trap model of the Super X.
Whoa. That was a crazy
And we did
way
it
to
with
hold the
skeet
gun
shooters
slowly.
too. You see, because the name is Winchester, and because we wanted to make the Super
I'll
X
try that
the
one
way
right
you
there.
want it, every way you want it, we planned from the beginning to produce models not just for the
What
field,
is that guy
but also
wearing?
for trap and skeet. Each version has its own specially developed barrel with different sights and with gas ports tuned to the appropriate load. You know this ensures better shooting. It also helps guarantee the durability that's built into these great guns from start to finish. But how did the prototype Super X Model 1 rate with the hundreds of hunters and shooters who looked at it, handled it, fired it? Here's what our research department has to report.
They liked it. That's an understatement. Their reaction to the style, the design, and the materials of the Super X Model 1 was, well, overwhelming. I mean it. They were delighted with the wood cut checkering, with the solid steel construction, the three-piece bolt, the ventilated rib, the fit, feel,
He's
and
like
balance.
reading one.
Incidentally, I'd like you to know that the Super X Model 1 balances to within 1 millimeter of the balance point of the Model 12. Hunters and shooters also like
You
the
couldn't
weight
just
of the Super
get
X
that
Model 1 when they
millimeter
handled it.
taken care of
And
to
even
balance it
more
the
when they
same.
shot
Look at
it.
that guy.
Trap and skeet
It's the elbow
shooters
guy.
were also enthusiastic
Mr.
about
Elbow.
the design and size of the forearm. Really gives you something to hold on to. I really liked it. It's
Forearm
big enough
does
to
feel good.
grasp firmly. And all shooters like the trigger pull, the trigger contour, and the trigger guard assembly design.
It did. Felt good.
Matter of fact, the trigger design of the Super X Model 1 with its solid all-steel strength were rated far above the competition guns. So, to sum up this field research story, hunters and shooters told us that the Super X Model 1 points fast, operates well, with smooth action and little recoil. It has a gas system that compares favorably with the competitive guns. Shooters are enthusiastic about the feel, weight, and balance of our gun. They're
This is true.
delighted with the bolt,
I liked it too.
mechanism, the sighting pleasure. In terms of acceptance by men who know and have used shotguns regularly, I feel certain that in the Super X Model 1, Winchester has another winner like the Model 12.
The loading system is a little different from what most hunters and shooters are used to. With the Super X, it's easy and comfortable, but it will be up to the dealers to demonstrate the loading procedure.
What's different?
Right. And when we show them, not just the loading system, but all the other remarkable features of this great new gun, it'll sell. They'll recognize the quality, the workmanship, and the high-grade materials used in every part. I'm betting my
They
bottom
did.
dollar this gun will stay sold.
Yes,
It's
and
just
stay sold
too
for a
expensive
long,
to
long
produce
time
that
to
way,
come.
I suppose.
We've tested this gun. We know how durable it is. One Super X fired 63,000 rounds before failing. Another, 67,000
That
rounds.
guy sat
And
there
one
and
Super
fired
X was still firing
67,000
after 83,000 rounds.
This is Bill.
So it's
He
not
fired
just a good gun.
83,000
The
rounds
Super X
into
is a
this
great
hole
gun.
last week.
It's the reliable semi-automatic that hunters and shooters have been asking for, waiting for. And now it's here. The all-new gas-operated
Right.
5-shot
Nice
Winchester
hat.
Super X Model 1. Winchester, the way you want it, all the way.
Oh, simultaneous bird kill again. Oh, nice. Oh, that ended abruptly. So, the buffer. Now, buying the buffer, this was really interesting. Let's take a look in here. Put this, the heavy duck. Let's get in here. Why are these things always so tight? Woo! Let's check this out. What do we got here? How do we do this again? Bolt back. And a little twisty motion here. We want to take the barrel off without this. Let's see if we can do that. Yes, we can. No, we can't. This likes to all stay together here as one unit. Well, this rain came out of here all sideways. What happened there? It's kind of interesting. And is the rubber gasket in here? Where did that go? Oh, that's inside the ring. Interesting. Comes apart different. Every time you do it, it comes apart a different way. So, this looks pretty conventional. Very 1100-ish with the gas ports, gas holes inside of there. Yes, that was gas holes. And we have a ring very much like the 1100 with this metal ring around it. It kind of uses it uses this whole unit here as the piston, where this seals against the inside of this. This seals in here with this kind of like piston ring looking engagement here. And this eliminates the guide rods. It just has this one guide rod here. It's actually not even a rod. This is just what adds the springiness to it. And this piece along the bottom here to hold everything. So it's a little different, but not so different that you're not understanding what you're seeing here. You know, pretty cool. Where's that dowel? I had a dowel here. Here it goes. So with this is pretty simple. We just punch out the bolt back. No, bolt forward. We punch out the pin here. That removes our trigger group. Check this out. This is so cool in here. So, all right. So, pulling it really hard, pushing it really hard with a thicker wooden dowel was enough to get it over here. And now I could probably just pull it up. There you go. Oh man, I hate that. It's really hard to do. That's probably been edited. I very rarely do that, but couldn't subject you to that. That was a real pain to get out. And the whole bolt assembly just lifts up out of there. Now let's see if we can see this buffer in here. That's where you need to go. See it over there and back? Down on the bottom, all the way down here. That's the buffer. And the thing is, when I went to put the buffer in, it was completely hammered, beat up, and destroyed by the last person to have the gun. The buffer fell apart, got destroyed, and they just kept shooting. So when I shot it, either remnants of a replacement buffer or just whatever was left of the buffer started falling apart. It's terrible. Buffers. That's the thing with this gun, is the buffer. And if you really want to shoot this thing a lot, buy a few of them. So where I got this from was this place called New Line Guns, right? That's just the place that I bought it from, you know? And I don't remember what was going on. For some reason, I had to leave, like when I bought it, I left like contact information, you know what I mean? I'm trying to remember now exactly what, oh, you know what it was? I emailed the guy because I was like, hey, I bought your buffer. I'm going to install it and it won't fit in there. The reason why it wouldn't fit in there is because it was that hole where the buffer goes was battered to pieces. It was like battered up in there. I had to take a Dremel motor tool, Moto tool, and actually grind away the metal that was hammered into that area from the bolt smashing into the, it's these two pieces of the bolt right here that hammer against that circle where that buffer goes. And I thought it just didn't fit. You know, I couldn't get, trying to push it in there. It wouldn't go in there. It's funny, like the way this thing battered it, it almost made it look like factory marks in there, you know. And I sent the guy an email to the company and I said, you know, it won't fit. So they didn't take returns or something. So I was like, well, now what? You don't take returns, but it doesn't fit. But then I realized what was going on, ground it away with the Dremel Moto tool, and it went in there. And in the interim, then this company emails me back later that night, this guy, Jerry from there, and he's like, yeah, listen, you know, it might have gotten battered and there might be some metal in there. He knew exactly. And I was like, yeah, I apologize. I'm sorry. You are right. It is, the part is fine. I'm sorry. I don't need a return. If it fits in there and it stays, fine. If it doesn't, it's certainly not your fault that it was battered up, you know? And so I had a nice conversation with the guy and he was telling me about all kinds of things. He goes, hey, if you're interested, there's a lot of other upgrades that we have that you might be interested in. Like, she's like, so take your trigger group, for instance. He's like, you know, take a look at your trigger, the spring in there. I go, right. He goes, is it like a double spring, like a spring and a spring? And I was like, yeah, it is. It is good, right? And he goes, nah, that's the bad one. Those were all replaced as a single spring that works much better because you might have some light primer hits with that spring. And I'm like, oh, great. He goes, and also this button right here, they get chewed up, and the spring that's in here, obviously this is like the spring that's the recoil, whatever. So if this is what puts the, this is the real, what prevents the bolt from coming backwards is this spring pressure. And he goes, if these springs are dead, I can tell you by how long the spring is, how beat it is, and we could replace those too, but it's not easy to replace them. You have to use some whole system with hangers to hold the spring together as you take it apart. It is like a very, very difficult sounding, detailed procedure. So it's like, great. So like, let me just see how it functions with just the buffer in there. And then, so I recently had it out. I shot 2 more rounds with it. And this is what it looks like after the 2 more rounds. It seems to have held up. It did kind of, those 2 metal blocks on either side did kind of make indentations in the buffer there. So I don't know how long this would even last, but hey, it lasted. It lasted for a little while. So let's see. Let's put it back together again. The buffer. You got to be careful with this. You have to be careful when you put this together. This is the button here for the, you know, bolt release. You want to make sure you don't get the extractor here behind that when you go to put it in. I got it stuck in there, and that was that took a while. It took a while to figure out how to release that. Now here, you should be able to just push this right down and in, but just to be sure, I'm gonna hit it with this dowel just to make sure it doesn't. There we go. See, putting it together is much easier. And maybe we'll just skip the entire disassembly part. That was a real pain in the neck. And then trigger group. Does go together smooth though. I'll tell you that. It does. Nice. See, everything about how it goes together is cool. This part up against there. This guy up against there. Springy. This with the cup like that facing forwards. I have a little diagram here to show you that because everybody was probably messing that up. That cup forwards, the O-ring. Supposedly these destroy O-rings too. They're available. I didn't get any. Let me just. My one on the 1100s lasted forever, so maybe I'll get lucky with this one too. Doesn't really seem like it though. It kind of seems like it chews stuff up, this gun. It really does. It's certainly chewing up that buffer after just a couple of rounds, that's for sure. And this, so why is this not? Oh, that's not in all the way. We can't get here until we get here. We can't get here until we get here. There we go. All right, we're together. We're all in, baby. So where do we go now? Woo! We're together. Let's check out the shooting footage, and I'll tell you how I like this thing. I got 3 full rounds of trap here. I think I'll show you them all. I don't know if you'll have my commentary through the whole thing because of how long it is, but I think you guys like to watch the trap shooting. Plus, I am really, really proud of my performance with this gun. It is easy to be consistent with this thing. It's so the sights, let's just start there. The sights, it has a mid bead. I never really do well with mid beads. It seems to throw things off where I'm not really sure where anything goes. You know, like does the mid bead go in line with the barrel bead, under it? I never really, it's like too many things going on almost, it seems like, you know what I mean? I'm not sure. I got the rear of the receiver, the mid bead, front bead, the clay, you know, where I'm holding, and it just seems like it just gets complicated. That one extra aspect kind of complicates things for me. Never really do well with mid beads, but not on this gun. Somehow, when I put this thing to my shoulder, I don't have to worry where the mid bead goes. It's just there. And the ribbed barrel, the rib is nice and high. It sits up nice and high off the barrel, the way it should, the way a rib should on these guns, you know? And I love the sight picture. And the sight picture comes right to my eye when I shoulder this thing. That's how you know you know it's just made for you. You know what I mean? There's just some guns where they're just made for your size. They're made for your shoulder, the length of your arms, where your eyeball is on your skull. Who the hell knows? But it works for me, this gun. It comes right where it's supposed to be. It's natural. It just feels totally natural. And I'm totally happy with the like say the recoil, whatever. It doesn't beat me up at all. You know, maybe this guy Jerry, maybe I'll give this guy a call and really you know, be like, all right, so what do I got to do? Tell me, what do I got to do? The trigger is fine. It's setting off the round, and they say that this double spring, I think they say it could feel heavy. The trigger could feel heavy, and then it's weird that it's not a consistent trigger. Like it gets heavy, but then all of a sudden it feels lighter, then it gets heavy again. It's supposed to be like, you know, like it moves around or something. You know what I mean? It changes, but I don't see that. I don't notice that. Matter of fact, trigger feels great to me. I don't even, you know, when you know a trigger is good is when you don't even really think about it. Like you're not even remembering. Like, yeah, the trigger felt this or the trigger felt that. It's just not even an aspect. You're just like, I don't know. I don't even know. I don't even remember how the trigger was performing, because when your brain was giving you the go signal, you would just go without having to go like, oh, it hesitated. It took a second. The trigger was heavy. The trigger was light. It went off before I wanted. It didn't go off when I wanted. If it's going off when you want, then the trigger is just right for you, you know. And I didn't. And it was like that because I don't recall any issue. It wasn't even a consideration. It wasn't even something that needed to be you know, thought about. And it was consistent. So I don't think I need to do any changings with the trigger just yet, unless I'm like, you know, suddenly just start not setting off the shells, you know. But it seemed like it was doing just fine. But maybe that recoil spring in the buttstock, maybe I'll entertain that. Maybe I'll give him a call and find out. I think I quoted him on, I think it was like $30, something like that. But some kind of pain in the ass procedure to get it on there. Like you couldn't just, you know, something about with hangers, and you cut off pieces of hangers. So you know how you could hook a hanger through a spring and then take apart the part that, like whatever rod it's on, you pull out and you're keeping the spring compressed. So when you put it back together, you know what I mean? You know, sometimes they put like a hole through the rod so you can stick like a dowel through there to hold the spring in place while you change things. It sounded like that type of procedure, but that you had to do it a couple of different times back and forth to get it done just so without having to worry about it all coming apart. It sounded like a little bit of a pain in the ass, but this guy Jerry sounded really nice, like he wouldn't mind helping me to put it together. And I'll tell you something interesting. I'll tell you something really interesting. This New Line guns, right? Something about this New Line guns really was familiar to me, and I'm like, why do I feel like I know this guy? Why do I feel like this is something that I should know? You know what I mean? Well, the thing about New Line guns, where did I have this information now? Boy, I had a lot of stuff written down here in a sec. Okay, I got it right here. So the Winchester Model 100, okay? Remember the Model 100 video? These were made from 61 to 73. So they again went through that whole pre-1963 phase, whatever. My Model 100 is, I think, a 62. So it was a pre-63 model. Oh, I'm sorry, mine is a 61. So it's a first year model, okay? There was a recall on these things that was very, very serious. Watch my Winchester 100 video to get some real details on it. But the bottom line is it wasn't one of these nonsense things. It was a serious thing for Winchester, where the firing pins on this gun were breaking. And the nature of the design made it where when the firing pin did break, the spring would keep the firing pin, the tip of the firing pin, protruding through the bolt when it broke. So when it broke, the firing pin would be held back, but the part that broke off would still remain sticking out of the front of the bolt. And it has one of these bolts where when the bolt closes, it has a rotating bolt design. Those designs, like a rotating keyway, the front of the bolt will rotate into locking lugs, but the bolt comes almost all the way forward first, then it hits like a cammed surface that locks. The front of the bolt will rotate and lock into place. But before the front of the bolt would be able to rotate to lock into place, the firing pin protruding through there would hit the next round. It was a semi-automatic gun, so if the firing pin broke while you were shooting, the next shot in line, I mean, if it broke right on your last shot, I guess maybe you'd notice it, but if it broke and it's kicked out the empty and it pulled up, it's cycled a new round, the next round, before the bolt would have time to turn the bolt head into the locking lugs, the broken off tip of the firing pin would strike the next round, that next round it was loading. That round would detonate before the locking lugs had a chance to lock into place. And it was a very catastrophic failure when that firing pin would go. It couldn't be any worse. It's just one of those things where when you have these complicated designs, and sometimes things just break, they break. You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, this snaps sometimes. This, you know, like these buffers break. The buffer breaks. What's it going to do? It just falls apart. But that was a serious one because when it broke, it did something catastrophic. So they scrambled to have these things sent. They took it very seriously. And they came up with 4 places that you could, they were like recall centers, okay? And they were W.R. Long Gunsmiths in Coburg, Ontario, Bolsa in Westminster, California, Lefevre in Lee Center, New York, and there was a few other independent shops. One of them, New Line in Harvester, Missouri. And in my video, I accidentally say Montana because it was abbreviated as MO, and I think Montana is what MN. You know, I think I thought MO was Montana, but it's Missouri. So he's in Harvester, Missouri. This was way back then. This was the guy, and I haven't talked to him since. Just when I was on the line with him, he was like, "Yeah." He mentioned to me, he was like, "I was one of the warranty repair centers," and he was talking about how they got like, literally got like $3 per gun to do stuff like that. And he was like, "Yeah, if I modified, I've done the warranty work and modifications on hundreds of thousands of Winchesters." You know what I mean? That's what he was telling me, how he was giving me his like his resume over there. This guy was not nonsense, because then I was like, wait a minute, I think I might know where I know this guy. I actually watched my own video to get the information, and there it was. New Line Guns Incorporated in Harvester, Missouri was one of the, now my gun was updated by Bolsa. So you could tell because you could pull the bolt back and look through the magazine well at the top of the receiver, and they would stamp them. B was for Bolsa. There's a B on mine. There was an L for Lefevre, an N for New Line, an X for all other independent shops. And W.R. Long might have been, I don't know, a W or an L. The information, I couldn't find the Canadian information that was from Ontario, or maybe they didn't mark those. I don't know. But I had a B on mine, so it was definitely sent to Bolsa in Westminster, California. Would have been kind of funny if New Line would have worked on my Model 100. But that's where I thought that was really interesting, is where I found out about that guy and where I was familiar with him about. So that's the Winchester Super X Model 1. I like it. I would shoot trap with it all the time. And I would shoot. So let me see. What did I shoot? That first round that I shot with it, I wrote it down somewhere. No, I don't even know where the hell I put it. But I can tell you what I shot with it today. Today, my 3 rounds were a 23, a 20, and a 22. And I think that first round in the 3 that I just showed you right here, I think the first round was a 23, I believe I shot with it. So this is capable of a 25 for me. I just need that concentration or luck or whatever it is that you want to call it that gets you a 25. But to tell you the truth, I don't really feel all that confident with this thing just because of that buffer. 3 rounds of trap today put a huge dent in this thing. And if it dents in any further, the bolt is going to be contacting metal again. You know what I mean? So I think it's I got to really look into that spring, the recoil spring that's in the stock here. Or I don't know. But once again, Winchester, I don't know. You could fire 8 trillion rounds out of a 1100. You don't have any buffer issues or any, you're not exploding anything. Winchester just, this is like super high quality. They went back to the old school way of doing things. They certainly did. But, man, they just have this thing where they just can't get it all together without, there's always got to be one aspect that's screwy. And this thing was just too expensive for them to make. So they bailed on it. So when did they make them, actually? Never even got to that. From 1974 to 1981. After that was all just parts cleanup. Just parts cleanup. This guy's a 30-inch barrel, full choke. Awesome trap gun for me, but hard to trust it. That's what all the Winchester semi-autos are like. Awesome trap guns for me, hard to trust them. And coming up next, listen, the base date video, hugely popular. I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was just a YouTube algorithm giving us a little bonus bump or something, or if there really was that much interest in that thing. I do not know, but it was it was a video that took off like no other. It was a pretty popular video for me. So I decided to follow up with a little 1-2 punch regarding that gun. And we're going to take a look at one of its brothers. And until then, you all take care. See you soon. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Later.